Alright, to finish up our lesson and our unit here on matrices, we're going to look at inverse matrices. And all you have to do for an inverse matrix, inverse matrices are just two matrices that if you multiply them, you would get the identity matrix as a result. So as an example, here are two matrices that we would call A and A inverse. And to multiply, remember we did 2 by 2s here. You would go first row by first column. So 4 times negative 2 would give you negative 8. 3 times positive 3 would give you a positive 9. Okay? This entry over here would be first row, second column. So 4 times 3 is 12, and 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Down here, we're now in the second row, first column. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. 2 times 3 is positive 6. And then 3 times 3 is 9 for the last one, and 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. If you simplify all these, we get down to the identity matrix. That's what makes these guys inverses. So when it says prove if something is an inverse, you have to multiply them and show that they are multiplied to give you the identity matrix. Alright, now as a quick refresher, if you forget how to do row reduction, you might want to head back and check out some of those videos on how to row reduce. But remember, we always said we started in the bottom left-hand entry to turn that into a 0. We did that by making the top guy into the same number somehow. We're still getting this to a 0. I would add them together to get this matrix here. And then I would work my way upwards. How do I get a 2 into a 6? I'd multiply by negative 3. That's how I got the 6 to make this into a 0, again by adding. And always divide by the leading entries to get the identity matrix in the end. Alright, why is that important? Because the way you find an inverse matrix, so say I want to find the inverse of this matrix, what I have to do is I have to take this matrix, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to augment it like I've done before, but I'm going to augment it with the identity matrix, 1, 0, 0, 1. Okay, and now this is how it's going to look. To row reduce, same way I've done before. I'll multiply the top by 3, the bottom by negative 4. So my top now will be 12, 9 augmented with 3, 0. My bottom will now be negative 12, negative 8, 0, and negative 4. I'm going to add those two rows together. I'm going to plug it into row 2. Okay, and when I do that, my row 2 will now be 0, 1, 3, negative 4. My top will be 12, 9, 3, and 0. It hasn't changed. Alright, now I need to work my way upwards. So I'm going to multiply the bottom row by negative 9, so the same value. So 0, negative 9, negative 27, positive 36. Top stays the same, 12, 9, 3, and 0. I'll now add them together. Plug it now into row 1 like we've done before. When I do that, my top row will now be 12. Add those together, get 0. Negative 24, positive 36. My bottom stays the same. 0, negative 9, negative 27, positive 36. Then my last step is just to divide. Divide the top row by 12. Divide the bottom row by negative 9. And when I do that, my top row now should be 1, 0, negative 2, 3. My bottom should be 0, 1, excuse me, 3, and negative 4. This part right here that I'm about to highlight, and I'm going to color code in green here, that part is the inverse matrix of our original. This part right here is A inverse compared to our original matrix A. Alright? So, here's an example. I would suggest pausing the video, seeing if you can find the inverse of this matrix. Alright, let's check it out. You got 4, 3, 1, 1. Remember, we augment with the identity matrix. I'm going to multiply the bottom row by a negative 4. That way I have it even with my top leading entry. So this will now be 0, 4 on the bottom. I can now add them together. Top row is still the same. My bottom row will now be 0, negative 1, 1, and 4. Okay, I need to now work my way upwards. So I'm going to multiply the bottom row by a positive 3. So I'll get 0, negative 3, 3, and 12, with my top row still being the same, 4, 3, 1, and 0. I can now add them together. I'll plug into the top row this time. 4, 0, 4, and 12. The bottom row is still the same. 0, negative 3, 3, and 12. And then I just divide the top row by this leading entry of 4. And the bottom row by the leading entry of negative 3. So negative 1 and negative 4. And again, this guy right here becomes my inverse matrix.